The research ship Starlight Explorer moved slowly through the dark space around planet Kepler 442b. Inside the ship, Dr. Elena Martinez bent over her microscope, studying a strange blue plant they had found on the planet's surface. The plant glowed softly in the ship's lab, and Elena could not figure out why it made its own light. "This is amazing," she whispered to herself. Elena had been studying alien plants for 10 years, but she had never seen anything like this before. The plant seemed to react to her presence, glowing brighter when she came close. Captain Jake Thompson walked into the lab. He was tall and strong, with dark hair and calm brown eyes. Jake looked different from the other crew members on the ship. While the Xanathi people were small and thin with pale skin, Jake was big and solid. His people came from a world called Earth, and other aliens called them Deathworlders because their home planet was so dangerous. "How is the research going, Elena?" Jake asked. He spoke the Xanathi language well, but his voice was deeper than theirs. "Very good, Captain. This planet is unlike anything we have seen before. It makes light without any outside power source. I think it might be alive in ways we do not understand yet." Jake nodded and looked at the plant. The Xanathi crew had been nervous about bringing it aboard, but Jake had said it was safe. The other crew members trusted him because he had good instincts about danger. Living on a death world had taught him to sense threats that others might miss. Officer Zen, the ship's security chief, ran into the lab. His large eyes were wide with fear, and his pale skin was even whiter than usual. "Captain Thompson, we have a problem. Our long-range sensors are picking up ships approaching our position." Jake's expression changed immediately. His relaxed manner disappeared, and Elena could see him become alert and focused. "How many ships, Zen?" 43 ships, Captain." "They are big ships, much bigger than ours. They have weapons." Elena felt her heart start beating faster. The Starlight Explorer was a research ship, not a warship. They had only basic shields and no real weapons. If someone wanted to attack them, they could not fight back. "Can you tell who they are?" Jake asked. Zen checked his datapad. "Yes, Captain. They are Vorthan Empire ships. They will be here in 2 hours." Elena gasped. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Vorthan Empire. They were a warlike people who took over peaceful worlds and made slaves of anyone they captured. They were cruel and never showed mercy to their enemies. "Why would they come here?" Elena asked. "This is just a research mission. We are not bothering anyone." Jake looked at her with sad eyes. "The Vorthan do not need a reason, Elena. They take what they want. They probably want our research data and our ship, and they will want to capture all of us." Officer Zen was shaking. "Now, Captain, what do? We cannot fight them. Our ship is not built for war." Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking. Elena could see his mind working, trying to find a solution to their problem. This was what made humans special, she realized. When other people panicked, humans became calmer and more focused. "Can we run away?" Elena asked. "No," Jake said. "Their ships are faster than ours. They will catch us before we can reach the next system. Can we hide somewhere?" Zen asked. Jake shook his head. "There is nowhere to hide. This system is mostly empty space." Elena felt hopeless. She thought about her family back on the Xanathi homeworld. She had planned to return home in 6 months with her research complete. Now it looked like she would never see her family again. Jake walked to the communication console. "I am going to try something," he said. "It might not work, but it is our only chance." He pressed several buttons and spoke into the microphone. "This is Captain Jake Thompson aboard the Xanathi research vessel Starlight Explorer. We are under attack by Vorthan forces at coordinates 847.221, 445, requesting immediate assistance. We have civilians aboard." Elena was confused. "Captain, who are you calling? The nearest coalition ships are weeks away." Jake looked at her with a strange expression. "I'm not calling the coalition, Elena. I am calling my people." "Your people?" Zen asked. "But humans do not have many ships in this part of space." "You would be surprised," Jake said quietly. Elena had heard stories about humans and their military, but she had always thought they were just stories. The Xanathi were a peaceful people who solved problems through science and diplomacy. They had never needed to build large armies or powerful weapons. "Captain," Zen said, "even if there are human ships nearby, can they get here in time?" "The Vorthen will be here in less than 2 hours," Jake checked his watch. "Human ships are fast, Zen, much faster than most people realize." Elena watched Jake work at the communication console. He seemed different now, more serious and focused. She had always known he was from a death world, but she had never really understood what that meant. Now she was beginning to see that humans were not just tough individuals. They were something else entirely. "Captain," she said, "what will happen?" "If the Vorthen catch us," Jake looked at her with honest eyes, "they will take you as slaves, Elena. They will steal all your research and destroy your ship. Some of you might survive, but you will never be free again." Elena felt sick. She thought about her peaceful life on the Xanathi homeworld, where the biggest danger was a storm that might damage the research stations. She had never imagined that such evil existed in the universe. Jake continued working at the console, sending out the same message over and over. Elena wondered if anyone would hear it. Human space was far away, and she did not know if there were any human ships close enough to help them. "Captain," Zen said, "the Vorthen ships are moving faster now. They will be here in 1 hour and 30 minutes?" Jake nodded but did not look worried. "Keep monitoring their approach, Zen. Let me know if anything changes." Elena could not understand how Jake could be so calm. They were about to be captured by the most dangerous people in the galaxy, and he acted like it was just another day at work. "Captain," she said, "are you not scared?" Jake looked at her and smiled a little. "Being scared does not help anything, Elena. When there is danger, you think about solutions, not problems." Elena realized that this was what made humans special. They did not panic when things went wrong. Instead, they became more focused and determined. Living on a dangerous world had taught them to face threats head-on instead of running away. "I am getting something on the emergency channel," Jake said suddenly. He pressed a button, and a voice came through the speakers. "This is Commander Rick Davis aboard the human colony ship New Horizon. We received your distress call, Captain Thompson. Help is coming. Hold your position." Elena felt a little hope for the first time since they had detected the Vorthen ships. "How long until they arrive?" she asked. Jake spoke into the microphone. "Commander Davis, this is Thompson. How long until you can reach us?" "Unknown, Captain. We are not the only ones coming. Word is spreading through human space. Every available ship is heading your way." Elena looked at Jake with surprise. "Every available ship? For us?" Jake nodded. "Humans do not abandon their own, Elena, and they do not let innocent people get hurt if they can help it." Elena was starting to understand something important about humans. They were not just tough individuals. They were a people who would fight to protect anyone who needed help. Even if those people were from another species, the Vorthen ships were getting closer, and Elena could see them on the ship's main screen. They looked dark and threatening, covered with weapons and armor. Soon, those ships would be close enough to attack, but somewhere in the darkness of space, help was coming. Elena did not know how many human ships were on their way, but she was beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, they might survive this day. Commander Rick Davis sat in his command chair aboard the colony ship New Horizon, reading supply reports. The ship was carrying food and equipment to a new human settlement 3 systems away. It was supposed to be a quiet, boring trip. Davis liked boring trips. They meant nobody was shooting at him. Then the emergency message came through the speakers. "This is Captain Jake Thompson aboard the Xanathi research vessel Starlight Explorer. We are under attack by Vorthen forces at coordinates 847.221, 445, requesting immediate assistance. We have civilians aboard." Davis dropped his datapad. The moment he heard the words "civilians under attack," everything in his mind changed. He had been a soldier for 20 years, and he knew that some things were more important than supply runs. Navigation, set course for coordinates 847.221, 445. maximum speed, he ordered. Sir, that will take us 6 hours to reach, the navigation officer replied. Then we better get moving. Communications, patch me through to Admiral Wright. Davis waited while his communication officer connected him to the flagship USS Vengeance. The ship was conducting training exercises in the Proxima system, 2 days away from Davis's position. But Admiral Susan Wright was the highest-ranking human military officer in this part of space, and she needed to know what was happening. This is Admiral Wright. What is your status, Commander? Admiral, we have received a distress call from Captain Thompson aboard a Xanathi research vessel. They are under attack by Vorthan forces. 43 enemy ships? They have civilians aboard? There was silence on the communication line for a moment. Then Admiral Wright spoke, and her voice was cold and hard. All available vessels, converge. On coordinates 847.221, 445. Priority Alpha, civilian lives at stake. Davis smiled grimly. Priority Alpha meant that every human ship in the area would drop what they were doing and head to the battle. It also meant that the rules of engagement were simple. Destroy anything that threatened innocent people. Within minutes, reports started coming in from across human space. The destroyer USS Lightning Strike changed course from its patrol route. The carrier USS Freedom launched every fighter it had and began moving toward the coordinates. Mining ships, cargo vessels, and passenger liners all volunteered to join the rescue mission. Davis had seen this before. When humans heard that civilians were in danger, they reacted like a nest of angry wasps. It did not matter if the civilians were human or alien. It did not matter if the rescue was dangerous or impossible. Humans simply could not ignore a cry for help. Sir, his communication officer said, I am getting reports from all over human space. Ships are converging on the coordinates from every direction. How many ships? Davis asked. Unknown, sir. The number keeps growing. Meanwhile, aboard the Starlight Explorer, Captain Jake Thompson watched the Vorthan fleet approach. The enemy ships were massive and covered with weapons. They moved in perfect formation like a pack of predators closing in on their prey. Captain, Officer Zen said, they are sending us a message. Put it on the main screen, Jake ordered. The face of a Vorthan general appeared on the screen. His skin was dark gray and his eyes were cold and cruel. He wore a black uniform covered with medals and symbols of rank. I am General Krath of the Vorthan Empire. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Your ship and all its contents now belong to the Empire. Resist, and you will be destroyed. Jake stood up and looked directly at the general. General, this is a peaceful research vessel. We have done nothing wrong. We are not bothering anyone. General. Krath laughed. Wrong and right do not matter, human. Only strength matters. You are weak, and we are strong. Therefore, you belong to us now. Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. General, I suggest you reconsider. You are making a mistake. The only mistake would be to show you mercy, Krath replied. You have 10 minutes to surrender. After that, we will take your ship by force. The screen went black. Jake turned to his crew. Dr. Elena Martinez was standing near the back of the bridge, her face pale with fear. Officer Zen was checking his security systems, but Jake could see his hands shaking. Captain, Elena said, what do we do now? Jake looked at her with steady eyes. Now we prepare to defend ourselves. But Captain, Zen said, we are just a research ship. We have no weapons, Jake smiled grimly. Zen, you are thinking like a Xanathi. Sometimes the best weapon is not a gun or a missile. Sometimes the best weapon is time. Jake began giving orders to his crew. He told them to move equipment to create barriers in the hallways. He showed them how to use their science. Tools as weapons. He explained how to set up ambush points and escape routes. Dr. Martinez watched in amazement as Jake transformed their peaceful research ship into a defensive fortress. He seemed to know exactly what to do, as if he had been preparing for this moment his whole life. Captain, she said, how do you know all this? Jake looked at her while he welded a metal plate across a doorway. Elena, I come from a world where everything is trying to kill you, plants, animals, weather, even the ground under your feet. Humans learn to fight from the day they are born. It is not something we choose to do. It is something we have to do. To survive. Elena began to understand why other aliens called humans Deathworlders. It was not just because they were tough. It was because they had spent thousands of years learning how to survive in impossible situations. Incoming message from Commander Davis. The communication officer announced. Jake pressed a button. This is Thompson. Captain, this is Davis aboard. The New Horizon. We are 6 hours out from your position. Admiral Wright is mobilizing the entire fleet. Help is coming. How many ships? Jake asked. Unknown, Captain. Every human vessel in the area is heading your way. I have never seen anything like it. Jake smiled. Thank you, Commander. We will hold our position. Captain, Davis said. What? Is your defensive situation? Jake looked around the bridge. His small crew was working frantically to prepare defenses. We have minimal defensive capabilities, but we will make them work for it. Understood, Captain. Fight hard. We are coming. The line went quiet. Jake turned to his crew. You heard him. We need to buy time. Every minute we hold out is another minute for help to arrive. Officer Zen looked at the tactical display. Captain, they are launching boarding pods. 24. Pods, all heading for our docking bays? Jake nodded. This is where it gets interesting. Elena, I want you to go to the secure lab and lock yourself in. Do not come out until I come to get you. But Captain, I want to help, Elena protested. Jake looked at her with serious eyes. Elena, the best way you can help is to stay alive. If something happens to me, you will need to tell the rescue fleet what happened here. Elena realized that Jake was not expecting to survive this fight. He was planning to sacrifice himself to buy time for the human fleet to arrive. The thought made her feel sick. Zen, Jake said, deploy all security personnel to the main corridors. Set up crossfire positions at every junction. Use the stun weapons, but remember that Vorthan armor is thick. Yes, Captain, Zen replied. Jake picked up a plasma rifle from the weapons locker. Elena had never seen him hold a weapon before, but he handled it like he had been born with it in his hands. She realized that humans were not just tough individuals. They were a warrior species that had learned to fight before they learned to build starships. Captain, Zen said, the first boarding pod is about to dock. Jake checked his rifle and looked at his crew. Remember, we are not trying to win this fight. We are trying to delay it. Hit them hard, then fall back to the next position. Make them pay for every corridor. The ship shuddered as the first boarding pod attached to the hull. Jake could hear the sound of cutting tools as the Vorthan soldiers began to break through. The outer door. Here they come, he said quietly. Elena watched from the doorway as Jake and his small security team took their positions. She had always thought of humans as strange but harmless aliens who happened to be very tough. Now she was beginning to understand that they were something much more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The outer door exploded inward, and Vorthan soldiers began pouring through the opening. They were big and strong, covered in black armor, and carrying powerful weapons. They moved with the confidence of soldiers who had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had never fought humans before. Jake and his team opened fire, and the first wave of Vorthan soldiers fell. The humans moved with a speed and precision that shocked their enemies. They used the ship's corridors like a maze, appearing and disappearing, hitting the enemy from unexpected angles. Elena watched in amazement as Jake turned a peaceful research ship into a battlefield. He was not just fighting, he was hunting. And somewhere in the darkness of space, more hunters were coming to join him. The space around planet Kepler 442b was quiet and dark. Then, suddenly, it was not quiet anymore. Bright flashes of light appeared everywhere as human ships dropped out of warp speed. First came 10 ships, then 20, then 50. The numbers kept growing until the darkness was filled with hundreds of human vessels. Admiral Susan Wright stood on the bridge of the USS Vengeance, watching the ships arrive. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp blue eyes. She had fought in war. battles than she could count, but she had never seen anything like this before. "Admiral," her communication officer said, "we have 312 human ships in the area. More are still arriving." Wright nodded. When the word had spread through human space that civilians were under attack, every available ship had volunteered to help. Military vessels, cargo ships, mining boats, even passenger liners had come to fight. It was the largest human fleet ever assembled. "Admiral," Commander Steve Rogers said from the fighter bay, "all fighters are ready for launch. We have over 2,000 pilots standing by." Wright looked at the tactical display. The Vorthan fleet was arranged around the research station in a perfect circle. 43 ships, all of them warships, all of them ready to fight. They had been preparing to capture some helpless civilians. Instead, they were about to face the full power of human military might. "All ships, this is Admiral Wright," she announced over the fleet communication channel. "We have civilians under attack. Our mission is simple: rescue those people and eliminate any threat to them. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Anything that threatens innocent lives gets destroyed." The response from the fleet was immediate. Hundreds of human voices replied at the same time, creating a roar of anger and determination that could be heard across the communication channels. General Krath stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the tactical display in disbelief. His intelligence reports had told him that humans were dangerous individually, but this was impossible. No single species could mobilize this many ships this quickly. "How many ships?" he asked his tactical officer. 314. "General, no, wait, 321. More are still arriving." Krath felt something he had never experienced before in his long military career. He felt fear. The Vorthan Empire had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had always fought species that were weaker than them. They had never faced an enemy that outnumbered them 8-1. "General," his communication officer said, "we are receiving a message from the human fleet." "Put it on the main screen," Krath ordered. Admiral Wright's face appeared on the screen. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were cold as ice. "General Krath, I am Admiral Susan Wright of the human fleet. You will immediately cease your attack on the civilian vessel and withdraw from this system." Krath tried to sound confident. "Admiral, you do not understand the situation. This system is now under Vorthan control. We claim it by right of conquest." Wright's expression did not change. "General, you have attacked innocent people. That makes you our enemy. You have 60 seconds to withdraw, or we will destroy every ship in your fleet." Krath laughed, but it sounded forced. "Admiral, you are outnumbered. We have 43 warships. You have a collection of civilian vessels and a few military ships." Wright smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. "General, you are about to learn why the galaxy calls us Deathworlders. 60 seconds. The screen went black. Krath turned to his tactical officer. "Analysis. Can we defeat them?" The officer was quiet for a moment, studying the data. "General, their ships are armed, all of them. Even the civilian vessels have weapons. I count over 15,000 missile tubes and 8,000 energy weapons." Krath felt his confidence disappear. "That is impossible. Civilian ships do not carry military weapons. Human civilian ships do, General. They are all armed for defense." Krath realized that he had made a terrible mistake. He had thought he was attacking helpless civilians. Instead, he had provoked the most dangerous species in the galaxy. "All ships prepare for battle," he ordered. "We will fight our way out of this system." Meanwhile, aboard the research station, Captain Jake Thompson was still fighting the Vorthan boarding parties. His small security team had been fighting for 2 hours, and they were running out of ammunition and places to retreat. "Captain, officer," Zen said, "we are down to our last defensive position. The Vorthan have taken most of the ship." Jake checked his rifle. He had 3 shots left. Around him, his crew was tired and scared, but they were still fighting. Dr. Elena Martinez had insisted on staying to help, and she was now bandaging wounds and bringing ammunition to the fighters. "Jake," Elena said, "look at the main screen." Jake turned to see the tactical display. The space around their ship was filled with human vessels. Hundreds of them, all moving into attack formation. "My God," he whispered. "They actually came." Elena stared at the screen. "Jake, how many ships are there?" "More than I have ever seen in one place," Jake replied. "Elena, I think we are about to witness something that will change the galaxy forever." The Vorthan soldiers were still trying to break through the final doors to the bridge. Jake could hear them setting up explosive charges on the other side of the barrier. "Captain," Zen said, "they will be through in minutes." Jake nodded. "Then we make our last stand here." "Elena, get behind the communications console." "Zen, you and your people take positions behind the equipment." Jake looked at his small band of defenders. They were scared and tired, but they were not giving up. They had learned something from fighting alongside a human. They had learned that sometimes you have to fight, even when you cannot win. "This is Admiral Wright to Captain Thompson," came a voice over the communications system. Jake pressed the reply button. "This is Thompson, Admiral. We are still here, but barely." "Captain, this is going to get very loud very quickly. Keep your heads down." Jake looked at his crew. "You heard her. Everyone take cover." The battle began with a sound like thunder. The human fleet attacked from every direction at once. Destroyers hit the Vorthan flanks while battleships engaged their heavy cruisers. Fighter squadrons swept through the enemy formation like angry wasps, their pilots screaming battle cries over the communication channels. Commander Rogers led his fighter wing in a direct assault on the Vorthan flagship. "This is Rogers to all. Fighters, target their command ship. Let's cut the head off this snake." The human pilots fought with a skill and fury that terrified the Vorthan crews. They flew their ships like extensions of their own bodies, weaving through enemy fire with impossible precision. When a human fighter was destroyed, two more took its place. General Krath watched in horror as his fleet was systematically destroyed. The humans did not fight like any enemy he had ever faced. They did not try to capture his ships or take prisoners. They simply destroyed everything that threatened the civilians. "General," his tactical officer said, "we have lost 17 ships. The humans are not accepting surrender." Krath realized that he was facing an enemy that did not follow the normal rules of war. The humans were not fighting for territory or resources. They were fighting for something much more dangerous. They were fighting for justice. "All ships, retreat," he ordered. "Full speed out of the system." But it was too late. The human fleet had surrounded the Vorthan ships, and there was no escape. Admiral Wright had planned this battle perfectly, using the superior numbers and coordination of her fleet to trap the enemy. "Admiral," Commander Rogers reported, "enemy flagship is trying to break through our lines." Wright's voice was cold and final. "Do not let them escape, Commander. No one who attacks civilians gets to go home." Jake Thompson listened to the battle from his barricaded position on the bridge. The ship around him shook with each explosion, and he could hear the Vorthan soldiers on the other side of the door becoming more desperate. "Captain," Elena said, "listen to the communications." "The humans are winning," Jake smiled grimly. "Elena, the humans were always going to win. The question was whether we would live to see it." The explosive charges on the door went off, and Vorthan soldiers began pouring through the opening. Jake and his team opened fire, determined to make their last stand count, but then the ship shuddered, and the artificial gravity failed for a moment. Jake realized that something had hit the Vorthan flagship. The enemy soldiers stopped their advance and began receiving urgent messages from their command structure. "What is happening?" One of the Vorthan soldiers asked in his own language. Jake understood enough Vorthan to know what they were saying. Their fleet was being destroyed, and they were about to be stranded on a ship full of very angry humans. The Vorthan soldiers looked at each other, then at Jake and his small team. They had been confident when they thought they were capturing helpless civilians. Now they were scared and confused. "Surrender?" Jake said in Vorthan. "Your fleet is gone. You have no way home." The lead Vorthan soldier looked at his men, then threw down his weapon. "We surrender," he said. Jake kept his rifle pointed at them, but allowed himself to smile. "Elena, I think our friends have arrived." The battle had been raging for 2 hours, but there was no doubt about who was winning. General Krath watched from his command chair as another of his ships exploded under human fire. His proud fleet of 43 warships was now down to 15. And those remaining ships were badly damaged. "General," his tactical officer said, "the humans are not taking prisoners. Every ship they disable, they destroy completely." Krath had never seen anything like this before. In every war he had fought, enemies would accept surrender and take prisoners. But the humans seemed to have no interest in mercy. They fought with a cold fury that terrified his soldiers. "Why are they so angry?" Krath asked. "This is just war. People die in war." His communication officer looked up from his station. "General, I have been listening to their battle communications. They keep talking about protecting civilians. They seem to think we are monsters for attacking non-military targets." Krath did not understand. War was war. You attacked whoever you needed to attack to win. The idea that civilians should be protected made no sense to him. But clearly, it made perfect sense to the humans. Admiral Wright stood on the bridge of the USS Vengeance, watching the tactical display. Her fleet was performing exactly as she had planned. The human ships moved in perfect coordination, each captain knowing exactly what to do without being told. "Admiral," Commander Rogers reported from his fighter, "the enemy is trying to form a defensive line around their flagship." Wright nodded. "All destroyers, focus fire on their defensive formation. Battleships, target their heavy cruisers. Fighters, keep hitting their engines and weapons." The human attack was like watching a machine work. Every ship had a job, and every job was being done perfectly. The humans had been fighting wars for thousands of years, and it showed in every movement of their fleet. Lieutenant Colonel Karen White watched the battle from her marine transport ship. Her job was to board any enemy vessels that surrendered and secure them. So far, no Vorthan ships had surrendered. They all fought until they were destroyed. "Colonel," her sergeant said, "why are they not giving up? They have to know they cannot." "Win," White checked her assault rifle. "Because they do not understand what they are fighting, Sergeant. They think this is about territory or resources. They do not realize that they attacked our family." The sergeant looked confused. "Our family? Colonel, these are Xanathi civilians." White looked at him with serious eyes. "Sergeant, when someone sends out a distress call, they become our family. That is what it means to be human. We do not abandon our family, and we do not let anyone hurt them." Meanwhile, aboard the research station, Captain Jake Thompson was securing the Vorthan prisoners. The enemy soldiers had surrendered when they realized their fleet was being destroyed. Now they sat in the ship's cargo bay, looking scared and confused. Dr. Elena Martinez was treating the wounded. Several of Jake's security team had been hurt in the fighting, but they were all alive. She worked quietly, using the ship's medical supplies to patch up cuts and burns. "Jake," she said, "I do not understand something. Why did so many human ships come to help us? We are not even the same species." Jake was checking his rifle, making sure it was ready in case more Vorthan soldiers tried to board the ship. "Elena, humans have a rule. When someone calls for help, you answer. It does not matter who they are or where they come from. If they need help, you help them, but this is a war," Elena said. "Hundreds of ships, thousands of people, all risking their lives for us. Why?" Jake looked at her with patient eyes. "Because that is what makes us human, Elena. We take care of each other. All of us. Even the ones who look different or come from different worlds." Officer Zen was monitoring the battle communications. "Captain, the human fleet is asking if we need medical assistance or supplies." Jake pressed the communication button. "This is Captain Thompson. We have wounded, but our medical bay is handling them. We also have Vorthan prisoners." Admiral Wright's voice came through the speakers. "Understood, Captain. We will send a Marine team to collect the prisoners." "Are you and your crew safe?" "Yes, Admiral. Thanks to you and your people." "Captain, what you and your crew did today was brave. You bought us the time we needed to get here." Jake looked around at his small team of Xanathi researchers and security officers. They had fought alongside him against trained Vorthan soldiers, and survived. Admiral, my crew did something amazing today. They learned how to fight back. Elena felt proud when she heard Jake say that. She had always thought of herself as just a scientist, someone who studied plants and wrote reports. But today she had helped fight off an attack by the most dangerous military force in the galaxy. The battle outside was reaching its end. General Krath's flagship was surrounded by human ships, all of them firing continuously. His shields were failing and his weapons were destroyed. General, his tactical officer said, we have lost all our escort ships. We are alone. Krath looked at the tactical display. Only his flagship remained from his proud fleet of 43 warships. Around him, hundreds of human ships waited like hungry predators. Sir, his communication officer said, the humans are sending us a message. Put it on screen, Krath ordered. Admiral Wright appeared on the main screen. Her face was calm, but her eyes were filled with cold anger. General Krath, your fleet is destroyed. Your soldiers are captured. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the laws of war. Krath tried to sound defiant. I will never surrender to Deathworlders. Wright's expression did not change. General, you called us Deathworlders like it was an insult? But you are right. We come from a world of death, and we learned how to survive it. We learned how to fight back against anything that threatened us. Today, you threatened innocent people under our protection. That makes you our enemy. Krath realized that he had made a terrible mistake. He had thought humans were just another species to be conquered. He had not understood that they were something much more dangerous. What do you want? He asked. I want you to understand something, General. This is what happens when you attack civilians. This is what happens when you threaten innocent people. We will find you, and we will stop you. Krath looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at the screens, watching the human ships around them. They had never seen anything like this before. No enemy had ever been so completely destroyed so quickly. I surrender, Krath said quietly. Louder, General. I want your entire crew to hear you. Krath stood up and spoke clearly. I surrender. All Vorthan forces, lay down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Commander Rogers was leading his fighter wing on patrol around the battlefield when something appeared on his sensors. Admiral, I am detecting a massive object heading toward the research station. It looks like a missile. Admiral Wright checked her tactical display. Confirmed. Planet killer missile, launched from long range. Time to impact, 4 minutes. Rogers felt his blood run cold. A planet killer missile could destroy the entire research station and everyone on it. Admiral, I can intercept it. Commander, that missile is too big for fighter weapons to stop. Rogers was already turning his fighter toward the missile. Not with weapons, Admiral. I can ram it. Wright realized what Rogers was planning to do. Commander, that is a suicide mission. Admiral, we came here to protect civilians. That is what I am going to do. Rogers pushed his fighter to maximum speed, racing toward the massive missile. Behind him, his wing pilots followed, all of them volunteering to help with the impossible mission. This is Rogers to all human forces, he said over the communication channel. We have civilians to protect. This is what we do. Captain Thompson heard Rogers' transmission and understood immediately what was happening. Elena, Zen, everyone get to the emergency shelter. Now, what is happening? Elena asked. The Vorthan launched a planet-killer missile. Commander Rogers is going to stop it. Elena watched on the main screen as Rogers' small fighter raced toward the huge missile. It looked impossible. One tiny ship against a weapon designed to destroy entire worlds, but Rogers did not hesitate. He flew straight at the missile, his ship getting smaller and smaller on the screen until it was just a dot of light. This is Rogers, came his final transmission. Target eliminated. Tell them Deathworlders do not abandon their own. The missile exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the entire system. When the light faded, Commander Rogers and his fighter were gone. But the research station was safe. Admiral Wright stood quietly on her bridge, looking at the tactical display. Another good officer had died protecting innocent people. But that was what humans did. They protected the weak, even if it cost them everything. All ships, she announced. The mission is complete. The civilians are safe. Across the human fleet, hundreds of voices replied as one. Mission accomplished, Admiral. But everyone knew that something important had happened here. The galaxy had just learned what humans would do to protect innocent people, and that lesson would change everything. The battle was over. The space around planet Kepler 442b was filled with the wreckage of 43 Vorthan warships. Not a single enemy vessel had escaped. The human fleet floated in perfect formation, their weapons still hot from the fight. Admiral. Susan Wright stood on the bridge of the USS Vengeance, looking at the tactical display. Her fleet had accomplished something that would be talked about for generations. They had destroyed an entire enemy fleet without losing a single ship. But the victory felt hollow because of the price they had paid. Admiral, her communication officer said, "We are receiving messages from across the galaxy. News of the battle is spreading fast." Wright nodded. "What kind of messages?" "Mixed, Admiral. Some species are congratulating us. Others are asking if we plan to conquer their territory next." Wright understood their fear. The human fleet had just demonstrated a level of military power that shocked the galaxy. Species that had always thought of humans as tough but peaceful were now realizing that they were something much more dangerous. "Send a message to all coalition governments," Wright ordered. "Tell them that human forces acted only to protect innocent civilians. We have no territorial ambitions and no plans for conquest." Meanwhile, aboard the research station, Captain Jake Thompson was helping his crew clean up the damage from the battle. The Vorthan boarding parties had caused a lot of destruction, but the ship was still functional. Dr. Elena Martinez was working in the medical bay, treating the last of the wounded. She had learned a lot about combat medicine in the past few hours. More importantly, she had learned something about herself. When the fighting started, she had not run away. She had stayed and helped. "Elena," Jake said, walking into the medical bay, "Admiral Wright wants to speak with you." Elena looked up from her patient. "With me? Why?" "Because you were here, Elena. You saw what happened. Your testimony will be important." Elena followed Jake to the bridge, where Admiral Wright's face appeared on the main screen. The Admiral looked tired but satisfied. "Dr. Martinez," Wright said, "I understand you witnessed the entire attack. Would you be willing to give a formal statement about what happened here?" Elena nodded. "Yes, Admiral. The Vorthan attacked without warning. They said they were going to take us as slaves and steal our research. If Captain Thompson had not called for help, we would all be dead or worse." Wright smiled slightly. "Doctor, what you and your crew did today was brave. You fought back against impossible odds and survived until help could arrive." "Admiral," Elena said, "I want to ask you something. Why did so many human ships come to help us?" "We are not even your people." Wright looked at her with serious eyes. "Dr. Martinez, when someone sends out a distress call, they become our people. That is what it means to be human. We do not abandon anyone who needs our help." Elena felt tears in her eyes. "Admiral Commander Rogers died to save us." "I do not even know what to say." "You honor his memory by living, Doctor. By continuing your research and making the galaxy a better place. That is what he would want." The conversation ended, and Elena turned to Jake. "Captain, I want to make a request." "I want to transfer to a human vessel." Jake looked surprised. "Elena, why?" "You are a brilliant scientist. You can work anywhere you want." "Because I want to work with people who understand what it means to protect others. I want to work with people who would risk everything to save strangers." Jake smiled. "Elena, I think that can be arranged." Across the galaxy, the news of the battle was spreading like wildfire. In the Galactic Council chambers, representatives from hundreds of species gathered to discuss what had happened. Ambassador Helen Foster sat at the human delegation table, preparing for what she knew would be a difficult session. The other species were scared of human military power, and she needed to reassure them that humanity had no aggressive intentions. The Vorthan ambassador, a thin creature with gray skin and cold eyes, stood to address the council. Fellow delegates, we have witnessed a terrible act of aggression by the human species. They destroyed an entire fleet without offering terms of surrender. Ambassador Foster stood up. The human fleet acted only to protect innocent civilians who were under attack. The Vorthan Empire initiated hostilities by attacking a peaceful research vessel. The humans used excessive force, the Vorthan ambassador replied. They could have negotiated for the release of the prisoners. Foster looked around the council chamber. The Vorthan ambassador speaks of negotiation, but his people do not negotiate. They conquer, they enslave, they destroy. When the Vorthan attack civilians, there is no room for negotiation. A delegate from the peaceful Andorian Republic raised his hand. Ambassador Foster, your species has demonstrated incredible military power. How do we know you will not use that power against us? Foster had been expecting this question. Because we are not the Vorthan Empire, we do not conquer peaceful worlds. We do not enslave other species, we protect them. But you destroyed an entire fleet, the Andorian delegate said. That level of violence is unprecedented. Foster looked at him with steady eyes. Delegate, what would your people do if someone attacked your children? Would you negotiate? Would you show mercy? Or would you fight with everything you had? The Andorian delegate was quiet for a moment. We would fight, he admitted. Then you understand why we did what we did? The Vorthan attacked innocent people. They threatened to enslave them. We stopped them. That is what civilized people do. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Some delegates agreed with Foster, while others worried about human military power. But everyone understood that something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. Foster stood up again. Fellow delegates, I want to make something clear. Humans have no interest in conquest or expansion at the expense of other species. But we will not stand by and watch innocent people be hurt. Any species that attacks civilians will face the full power of the human military. The Vorthan ambassador tried to protest, but Foster continued. We call this the Deathworlder doctrine. We are not your enemies, but we are absolutely your worst nightmare if you threaten the innocent. The council voted to condemn the Vorthan attack and officially thank the human fleet for protecting civilians. It was a major victory for human diplomacy, but Foster knew that the real work was just beginning. Meanwhile, in Vorthan space, the few surviving ships from General Krath's fleet limped back to their homeworlds. The news of their defeat spread quickly through the Empire, causing panic among the military leadership. General Krath sat in a prison cell aboard the USS Vengeance, thinking about what had gone wrong. He had attacked what he thought was a helpless research ship. Instead, he had awakened the most dangerous military force in the galaxy. A human guard brought him his daily meal. General, the guard said, you have a visitor. Admiral Wright entered the cell. She looked at Krath with cold eyes. General, you are going to be tried for war crimes. The evidence against you is overwhelming. Krath looked up at her. Admiral, I was just following orders. This is how war is fought in the Empire. Not anymore, Wright replied. Your empire is finished, General? Word of your defeat has spread throughout the galaxy. No one will follow you now. Krath realized that she was right. The Vorthan Empire had built its power on fear and intimidation. But now there was something more frightening than they were. The humans had shown the galaxy that evil could be defeated. What happens now? Krath asked. Now you face justice, Wright said. And the galaxy learns that attacking innocent people has consequences. 6 months later, Captain Jake Thompson stood on the bridge of the USS Determination, his new ship. The vessel was a joint humans-Anathi exploration craft, designed to continue the scientific work that had been interrupted by the Vorthan. At TTACK, Dr. Elena Martinez worked beside him as his science officer. She had learned to handle both a microscope and a plasma rifle, skills that served her well in the dangerous business of deep space exploration. Captain, she said, we are receiving a distress call from the Rigel system. A mining colony is under attack by pirates. Jake looked at the message on his screen. All hands, battle stations, set course for the Rigel system, maximum speed. Elena, smiled as she watched Jake spring into action. She had seen this before. When humans heard that someone needed help, they dropped everything and rushed to provide it. "Elena," Jake said, "send a message to Admiral Wright. Tell her we have civilians under attack and need backup." Elena sent the message, already knowing what the response would be. Within hours, human ships would be converging on the Rigel system from across the galaxy. The pirates would face the same overwhelming force that had destroyed the Vorthan fleet. "Captain," Elena said, "why do humans always respond so quickly to distress calls?" Jake looked at her with a smile. "Because that is what makes us human, Elena. We take care of each other." All of us. As the USS Determination jumped to warp speed, Elena understood that she was now part of something bigger than herself. She was part of a species that would cross the galaxy to help a stranger. She was part of a people who believed that protecting the innocent was worth any sacrifice. The galaxy had learned an important lesson from the battle at Kepler 442b. Evil might be strong, but there were people who were stronger. And when those people heard a cry for help, they would answer with everything they had. The Deathworlders were watching.